Hello there. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, depending on where you are. Very, very warm welcome to today's discussion to the ET CEO Dialogues presented by SAP. Thank you all very, very much. Today we have with us top leaders from the Indian ITES space. And today we'll be talking about reimagining growth and operating models in the new normal. My name is Alokesh Bhattacharya. I'm senior editor at the Economic Times. I'm joined by my colleague Suchetna.
Hello, everyone. Once again, I'm Suchetna Ray. I'm Senior Assistant Editor with the Economic Times. And I take this opportunity to welcome all of you to today's discussion with the hope, and I'm certain that it will give us sharp insights into the during COVID and the post-COVID scenario. This is Alokesh Das, as we call him fondly, Alokesh Das' favorite line these days. There are three phases of life: before COVID, during COVID, and after COVID. So from this discussion, we're looking at getting sharp insights about your experiences during COVID and post-COVID. And we have a very powerful panel today. And a quick round of introductions. I take this opportunity again to welcome C.P. Gurnani, MD and CEO of Tech Mahindra, Debashish Chatterjee, MD and CEO Mindtree, Tiger Tyagarajan, CEO Genpact, Dheeraj Rajaram, founder and CEO Mu Sigma.
We also have with us Monish Darda, the co-founder, director and CTO of iCertis. We have Sumit Saraogi, MD and senior partner of BCG. Sindhu Gangadharan, who's the SVP and managing director of SAP Labs India. And we have Sudha Natarajan, director of BCCL. A big thanks to all the panelists for joining this debate today. Welcome one and all. And we also welcome all the people who have joined us to listen into this debate. Thank you all for taking time out today. As this pandemic ravages the world, there's no sign of it stopping, right? It seems to be only getting worse and worse. Experts have predicted that the Indian IT sector will probably hit a decade low in terms of growth, and the impact may be worse than that of the 2008 financial crisis. That is really ominous, for a sector that has grown exponentially in 2 decades. If you look at 1998, the revenues were just a trifling $4.8 billion, and today it is $190 billion. The industry today employs 4.36 million people, and it has played a very big role in India transforming itself into a services-led economy, right? And in today's situation, the need for technology solutions during the pandemic has skyrocketed, which should augur well for IT companies. Yet, yesterday's results of TCS, it indicates that things won't necessarily be very smooth going forward.
Yeah, but Alokesh, also you have to remember the TCS said that COVID impact has bottomed out. And perhaps that has also led doomsayers to tone down their predictions. The decadal low growth and all of those predictions have we've seen being toned down over the last 2 months specifically. The fact is there are too many variables perhaps that are at play today. The pandemic has created an unprecedented business continuity planning nightmare. Work from home is accompanied by cybersecurity concerns. Deals might not materialize from clients whose businesses are in trouble. And the IT industry needs to look inwards at its own efforts at digital transformation. And to get a deeper understanding of the short-term challenges and what the medium-term and long-term holds for the IT sector, we will spend the next 5 minutes listening to insights from Sumit Saraogi of BCG. Over to you, Sumit.
Thank you, Suchetna. Good afternoon, good morning, everyone. My name is Sumit Saraogi. I'm a senior partner with BCG, and I lead our IT services practice. I think, thank you for the opportunity to introduce the topic in the superhero panel, as Sudha was saying. I think, as we look towards the future, it is important to consider the long-term operating model for the industry. And I think we were all forced into remote working by necessity. And if you look today, more than 90% of the 4.5 million people that Alokesh referred to are actually working from home. But the real question in the long term is how do we move to a model where we do remote working by choice, both for the organizations and for the employees. I believe that the future of remote will not be fully remote, will neither be fully co-located. It will likely be a hybrid remote model, where people will either come to offices on alternate weeks or will come to offices for select collaboration days or will come to office once a month to meet with each other. etc., etc. And the best fit models will have to be worked out, and I'm sure most of the panelists are already working them out for each of their different teams, for each of their different accounts. We in BCG actually did a survey for a lot of the remote workers, in the industry, and some very interesting findings came out as we looked at that, and we also spoke to many of the leaders. I think from an opportunity perspective, there was a defined increase in productivity or employee productivity that was actually pointed out by the employees themselves. There are, of course, obviously a lot of potential of savings or cost reductions that organizations can have from reduction in their fixed costs. Remote working also opens up new supply models for the industry. At the same time, as somebody else was also saying, we need to find the sustainable model, going forward for remote working. Some of the challenges in front of us as an industry, first around engagement and effectiveness. How do we have leaders that foster comparable coaching or productivity tracking and performance management for our people? And I know Tiger was talking about, about this a little while earlier, but I think we need to train our leaders to be more output or outcome focused, as opposed to more input focused or a number of hours on the job focused. Second, how do we approach recruiting and onboarding of people? How do we have routines and tools for remote working that can be scaled up? How can we have continuous talent development? One of the ideas being floated was actually Uberization of the gig economy workers. Can the industry move towards that? And lastly, it is also about regulations and regulatory changes that are required, which will essentially need the industry participants or organizations, NASSCOM, and the government to really work together in order to make sure that remote working over a long-term basis is possible. I want to introduce the other topic as well that we're going to talk about. And I think very often we as leaders are asked about, hey, what do you think is the growth potential? And I think Suchetna and Alokesh were referring to that in their opening statement as well. I guess, we were also curious about it as we spoke to different people. In May and June, we actually went out to about 700 odd buyers of IT and IT services to ask them about what would be COVID-19's impact on the IT stack. And I think based on that and some of my own thinkings, I wanted to introduce 5 key themes that may be important as we reimagine growth in this industry. First, offerings. What do we offer to our customers is being refined and repackaged to be more in sync with the challenges that our clients are facing in times of COVID. Firms are repivoting across geographies or sectors. More than half of the IT buyers expect, services like cloud, security, innovation, automation to be key priorities for next 12 months. This crisis has established new priorities in our customers, and we as an industry need to react to that and reimagine ourselves for that. Second, as the COVID crisis hit, there was a lot of concern for how will selling happen? How will we be able to sell and engage with our clients? Sellers were concerned with closing sales virtually. It was taking a long time. Time and material businesses were becoming more vulnerable. But over the last 2 or 3 months, we have found that the industry is now, sort of more and more comfortable with virtual selling. Buyers are also adapting to webinars. There have been multiple changes that the industry has done in terms of playbooks for virtual selling, engagement models, and even changes in commercial model to make sure that buyers are comfortable. Third, and this has been an evergreen theme, and we can't lose sight of this. There is a relentless focus, or has to be a relentless focus, on retaining the existing clients through cross-sell, upsell, even changes in commercial model for the existing clients. Fourth, and this is a favorite topic, for many conversations, is the fact that is digital and platform or solution-driven sales going to increase in the market? We are actually already seeing some of that in May and June. And more than 60% of the leaders actually anticipate an increased investment in digital transformation. But here is the interesting fact. Instead of just revenue acceleration, the buyers of this industry want digital investments to go both in cost reduction initiatives for them as well as revenue acceleration initiatives. And lastly, downturns are always good for acquisitions. And we've studied downturns in the past as well. Acquisitions made during downturns tend to have a higher return. Obviously, the valuations are suppressed. But I think the industry needs to, and is already looking at this as an opportunity to do some M&As or acquisitions to plug some holes in their offerings. We spoke to investors, about 70% of them actually plan to explore this crisis as an opportunity to acquire other companies. There are also some, last point on this is there are some non-traditional growth vectors that have also opened up as a result of the COVID crisis. And a GCC or a captive carve-out being one of them. And I'm very sure that companies in the sector are already thinking about it proactively, to see how they can take advantage of this. With that, back to you, Alokesh and Suchetna.
Right. So thank you, Sumit. In fact, very, very insightful, as we always expect from BCG. And your 5 themes, for reimagining growth was very, very interesting and very succinct. And I'm sure they will be of great use, to the participants, not just the panelists, but even those who are listening in today. So let us start the panel discussion now. We come to, basically we have 3 or 4 core talking points today. And the first talking point really, given that today's subject is on growth and operating models. So let us start with the operating models first, and then we'll go to the growth part of the debate. So if you look at operating models, really we look at 2 aspects. One is that what happened, during COVID, what remote working during COVID, what are the learnings from there? And then what are the opening up strategies, because the economy is now gradually being opened up all over. So for example, we all know that about 90% of the IT workforce, began operating from home since the lockdown began. And broadly, we know what the challenges were and what the workarounds were, have been, and how companies have addressed it. But if we look at the situation today, so I'd like to know from the panelists, what is the situation now? Have you successfully addressed both the infra, the security, as well as the people and motivational aspects? Is your business engine moving smoothly again? And what have you done to, make it work? So I'll start with Debashish. Debashish is, okay, yeah, he's there. So Debashish, maybe you can start off this debate, about these questions on how the situation is, how do you see it now? And have you also seen the role of technology changing because of the pandemic?
Okay. Thank you, Alokesh. So I would say, if you look at, I think before we started, we were talking about the pandemic and the impacts. And I was kind of feeling that there are a lot of good things which have happened because of the pandemic. In fact, a lot of things which we probably could have done earlier, but we are forced to change our behaviors, which, and I think Tiger mentioned this, I think some of these behaviors may be continuing. It may not change as we go forward. So I would say, if I look at a few things, if I just try to look at what are the challenges and what are the opportunities and what are the added responsibilities during the remote working, and let me just focus on that for the time being. First and foremost, we need to understand that the whole definition of BCP has changed. The definition of BCP was business continuity of your essential services, which was, when you had the floods in Chennai, we basically focused on what and how many people need to continue to work and how many for how many days. But I think that entire definition of BCP has completely changed now. And nobody imagined that BCP could be for 100% of the people, for 100% of the workforce, and for a number of days, which is infinite. We still don't know when this is going to get over. So we need to acknowledge the fact that BCP itself has undergone a change in terms of its definition. And of course, there has been tremendous support from the government, from NASSCOM. NASSCOM rallied behind all of us, all the IT companies, and we kind of got the authorities to work towards work from home. I think most of the companies managed to get back to work from home. Yeah, there were challenges in some situations, but overall, I think productivity loss has not been there. I think bulk of the people that I have spoken with, they are very happy with the overall productivity. So the challenges that we have come across, if you ask me, the only challenge which I worry about, and this is something which I've heard from my employees, is we keep talking about work-life balance, but it is almost like life-work balance now. I mean, people are actually, some people are dying to get back to work because they are actually, and we have been talking about, it's not a good term, mental healthness and all those things, but it is really a problem because some people are dying to get back to work. Now, in terms of opportunities, I would say, as I said, there are a lot of things which we never wanted to do before. We are managing our businesses with 0% travel. So now, I think I heard Tiger said, and which I completely agree to, and my travel will substantially go down. So I'll have significant, time to myself. So which will also be saving a lot of time. And if you ask me, the best learning I have got in terms of opportunity now is we used to talk about on-site, offshore, all these things, but we coined a term which is no-shore. And just look at the way we are on this call. It doesn't matter where you are. So it's like a no-shore agile model, which is evolving right now. And the best part of it is that it is not only evolving, the clients who were never agreeable to this, they have agreed to that. And some of the agile work that we are doing, and when we talk about no-shore, it is just not the teams that we are working on within my organization. Even the client organization is also part of that team. And I'm sure all of you are experiencing that. So I think that's a fantastic opportunity. And the other interesting thing that has happened, which I never thought would even happen before, and this is again something which we are forced to do, is there are a few deals that we had signed. Again, just to be a little specific with respect to my organization, and I was not sure whether I can execute those deals because every deal involves a transition, and we have successfully done remote transition, which I don't think we even imagine that clients will be also agreeing to do a remote transition end to end. And so these are the opportunities that exist today. But I think there is a big responsibility that we all have to acknowledge is, as we talk about all these things, I think these are all good things. We have been resilient. There are great opportunities ahead of us. There are new delivery models, operating models which will emerge. But my biggest issue that I am facing with today is the cyber. Because this is one area where I think that we can say that we have been doing investments, but that is not good enough. Because right now, if you ask me, every organization is probably on its edge. And we do not know how cyber can be impacting any one of us. And I think the only thing I would say is when it comes to cyber and data protection, this is also something which is the responsibility which the entire industry has to also take. I mean, when we talk about our workforce, when we talk about getting them future ready, I think they also need to take accept some responsibility, because when something goes wrong in cyber, it is not one company which gets impacted. It's the entire industry that gets impacted. I think that's one thing which I feel requires stricter governance. And, as we talk about cyber, we may have to look at, how do you modernize your workforce? How do you make your, like, for example, working from home, there are so many benefits. But one thing is that it has kind of exposed us to more security breaches, which we have to accept and we have to kind of be aware of. So maybe I'll just pause over there and, as we go along, I can talk more. But I think there's been a lot of opportunities which have opened up in my view during COVID. Challenges have been overcome, but I think there are added responsibilities also that we need to take as an industry.
Debashish, thanks for those inputs. You spoke about responsibilities, opportunities, and challenges. So before I take that question to Tiger, I'd ask my colleague Nidhi to just run. We've curated a few short polls, so I'll request her to run the first poll. Take a look at it. All the audience who are joining us, we have over 400 people attending it. All of you can take the poll, and we'll shortly announce the results as well. Oh wow, the results are there. So the question is, are you satisfied with your company's strategy to continue business during the lockdown? Are you satisfied with the strategy? Well, 54% are actually very satisfied, and 38 to 39% say that they're satisfied, but there could be room for improvement. Great. We're ending the first poll here. We have a few more lined up. And I take this question to Tiger. Taking off from where Debashish was talking about, give us a perspective of the BPO industry as you moved you moved a large section of your workforce to remote working. What are the cyber security and infrastructure issues that you're dealing with? And also, we are completely convinced that the productivity has increased. But how are you keeping your employees motivated? The work-life balance, as Debashish was talking about.
Thanks for having me on the panel, and I'm going to take off from where Sumit and Debashish left off, which is not dwell too much on the challenges that they described, because those challenges basically were the same irrespective of the nature of your business, whether it was a business that is focused on technology services or business process services or analytical services. I don't think there's that much of a difference between one and the other. The significant challenge and accountability and responsibility that we face is exactly the one Debashish called out, which is the whole world, not just us, by the way, our clients and their workforce is, I think the best way to describe it is the way one of our board members described it. There's a 10,000 times increase in the surface area on which a cyber attack can happen for any company like ours. We have 100,000 people. We've had an increase of 10,000 times. And when you think about it that way, you realize the nature of the challenge that we are facing, our clients are facing. And I would say, I don't think we can ever get to a position of saying we've solved it. Because the reality is in cyber, you never solve anything, because the day you solve it, you know, the attackers have gone one step ahead. So then you got to solve that one. So it's a continuous progress on solving the challenge of being exposed. And that's where a little bit, Sumit, I'm going to differ from one of your statements. I, by the way, agree with everything you laid out as the framework of the opportunity for the industry. I would pretty significantly disagree with one statement. And I think we as an industry need to be careful about this. I don't think we should approach work from home as an opportunity for us and for our clients to save cost. Our view is that it is likely that in the short term, costs actually go up. Because when you talk about real estate and fixed costs as savings, that is not a short-term implementation, that's a longer-term implementation. Number two, let's talk about the medium and long-term, forget the short-term. I think at best, costs will be equal. And I think I would prefer that the industry take that position. I'll tell you why. I think it's easy to expect real estate to go down and et cetera, et cetera. The reality is, if we don't invest that savings, potential savings, in better security, in better life-work balance, in better productivity tools, which I think before the conversation, Dheeraj on the panel pointed out, that look, productivity is also a function of what are you asked to do. I think we should keep that in mind. So what new things can we bring to our employee base? And that would require investments. How do you drive innovation? How do you get groups of hundreds of people to continuously innovate without having to stand around a water cooler? How do you create a water cooler environment in a daily environment in an office without actually being in the office? I think all of those require significant investment. I think the other thing that we must understand, at least in our industry, our portion of the industry, which is the business process side, that actually significantly works 24/7 in many cases, is that the infrastructure that we're talking about, not only real estate, but also IT infrastructure, used to be used by more than one person. 8 hours by one person, and 8 hours by another person, and 8 hours by a third person. When you do work from home, every person has their own infrastructure. So I would expect the industry to approach this as not a cost benefit for the customer, because that I think is minimizing the opportunity. The real opportunity here is all of a sudden the aperture of talent that you can access is everyone in the world, anywhere in the world, in any city in India, in any city in Romania, in any city in Philippines. Number two, you can access talent that finally says, I can do work without having to come to office. I mean, how many of us know people in our personal lives, in our families, in our friends, who actually wish, and you wish they could actually work because you know they are cleverer than you, but they're not willing to sacrifice 3 hours a day to commute. They would prefer to work. Number two, they would prefer to work 4 hours in the afternoon and 1 hour in the morning and then 2 hours after, dinner. It's much easier to do that if you're actually sitting at home while you're running your life and then carving out those time slots. I think those are the opportunities that we can get into. Think about it, what it does to employability at leadership levels of women talent. Think about what it does to employability of racially diverse people in an economy like the US, where racial diversity is such a challenge. So, and of course, there is a whole avenue of productivity to be unlocked, innovation to be unlocked. When you can bring 50 people into a room conversation and they sit in 10 different countries, the ability to do that is so much easier now than if you bring 20 people in a room in New York or in Bangalore and the other 20 people join on calls. The reality is it's actually one meeting which is happening in the room. The other 20 people are actually kind of left out. Now it's democratization. Everyone is equal. So I think the world is going to go through a significant discovery on all of this. There's a real opportunity. We've been forced to unlock it. I think Sumit is right. Constraints have been put in place. We and the clients have been forced to unlock it. And that applies to significant business model changes of our clients. I think there are 5 trends that we see that our clients are going to go through. Offline to online, big change, doesn't matter which industry. Move to the cloud. It was a change. It's an exponential curve now. Real-time analytics on the fly. Analytics was always important. Insights were always important, but I want it now and I want it real-time. And I want a new model to be developed today. The old model is gone. That's an expectation more and more. Virtualization forever. Work from anywhere, anytime. By the way, the virtualization from ever is a combination of cloud and real-time analytics and online. So it's all intermingled with each other. And the last thing I'll say is when you want all of these, it better be with great experience. So experience becomes incredibly important. Both user experience as well as employee experience. So we think those are the trends that our clients are going to go through. And that's the opportunity for our industry to latch on to those trends, drive those trends for our clients, allow our clients to access those trends.
Alokitha, you're on
Tiger, in fact, they were, you spread it out really well. It's a lot of insight in that. And in terms of the water cooler conversation, that is really one of the key aspects, right? That how do you unlock innovation and innovative thoughts when you don't have these informal conversations between teams? How do you get 50 people, even if you are getting them from different countries, like you said, if you get 50 people in a virtual room, can they really be as friendly as they would if they were to meet physically? Half the people will have their cameras switched off, and it's a really difficult situation to get them to interact in a very way. One of the things that I had heard was that one company had one team from a company. What they did was they would keep their Microsoft Teams or whatever they were using, Zoom, whatever they were using, they would keep it on through the day. Through the workday, you keep it on, and so you're actually hearing the conversations of other people, and you cannot mute your mic. You do your work, even if you're talking to your kid or something, so you are in a conversational kind of mode. But of course, what that does to your bandwidth, and your broadband is a different thing. I'll come to CP. CP Gurnani, Tech Mahindra. CP, you've been a massive leader in this industry, and you have not seen such a business continuity scenario before, despite your experience. So it would be good to hear from you, from a global delivery perspective. How did you overcome the challenges that were there, and what are the opportunities that you see ahead? You're on mute, sir. Yes.
Thank you, Alokesh. It's good to at least come to this forum and say hi to some of the old friends like Tiger, DC, and Iraj. So guys, many of you have spoken regarding the world during COVID and post-COVID. To me, I'm trying to find the common chord between the current conversation. The common chord is how long is this crisis going to last. Many of us have debated whether this is the most serious crisis that the world has faced in our living times. I don't think now there is any doubt, just because of the sheer time and the intensity, the way it is tracking all over the world. The second part, I mean, so clearly now people have started talking September, October. We all know there has been a gradual unlockdown. At the same time, you started hearing a shorter lockdown also. So clearly this, the Ludo game or the game that we used to play, snakes and ladders, is here to stay. And the snake is really powerful at the moment. To me, I also, when I look at the global delivery model, I start looking at, in this current environment, starting to view global delivery model as a musical instrument. When you start playing a musical instrument, we all know you need to practice. And once you are in tune with the music, in tune with the instrument, you do create something memorable. I think it is an opportunity for the technology industry. The opportunity for technology industry to redefine completely what is known as work and culture. The way it is shaping up today is, Sumit says hybrid. To me, I would like to believe, like Tiger does, that real estate is here to stay. I mean, I would love to go to office at least a few days in a week. Maybe, some people may call it old fashioned, but I think I get my energy out of going out of office. I mean, I do believe that there is a second element to work and customer, which is the social element, which is the cultural element. And I love those interactions. I love, walking around and getting a feel and being able to interact with people. And it's not that I always get that Edison moments and I get innovative ideas, but there is so much I get from listening. And, I'll just narrate a simple story. 1 week ago, I meet a young mother in my Pune office. And I ask her, what brings you to office? She said, I just wanted to get out. I said, why? I thought you girls were the ones who used to always say, allow us to work from home. I mean, this is again Tiger trying to get, that women feel privileged about it. Now, he said, when I'm home, my 9-year-old expects mom is home only for me. She said, I do need space. He said, when I'm home, my husband thinks, hey, honey, why don't you make that curry? You always make that curry. I mean, I don't make curry on a Wednesday. My mother-in-law, who used to help me out, now thinks she has to give me space. So she leaves the whole kitchen. Now she was watching her favorite serials, and I am the one who is balancing kitchen, husband, and my 9-year-old. Thank you very much. I want to come to office. So my point here is not about technology harmony. My point here is not about global delivery centers. My point here is not only about culture, it is also about we. When we come to office, we actually, in a lot of ways, create that balance, which is, the wrong way to put it, but that is actually the life-work balance. And my personal opinion is that, yes, work from home is here to stay, and it has been proven now. What DC said, what is on-site, what is off-site, what is no-shore, $181 billion organized, the industry has recognized that best is that you work wherever you are, And I love the idea of visualizing DC in his beach shorts, working from, the beach in Goa, wherever he is. So,
and you can only see the shirt.
yeah.
You can't see the shirt.
No, DC uses augmented intelligence, and he will show you a workplace where he has got 1,000 people behind him. Right, so
And as a Goa beach, that will be quite a sight.
yeah. So my point is very simple. I think many of us will redefine the work culture. Many of us will define the technology stacks. What we consider cybersecurity as a threat, I consider cybersecurity as an opportunity. The reality is those 5 parameters that Tiger said about cloud to virtualization to customer experience. All of these are opportunities for the India growth story. It is for us to weave it and be able to satisfy ourselves and the rest of the world that digital is here to stay. Mixed working is here to stay, whether we call it hybrid or whatever. The redefinition of culture, redefinition of infrastructure, and a redefinition of how the industry will evolve is here to stay. For us, frankly, we have never had a better catalyst and a better opportunity.
Right. I'll take the question to Sindhu. But before that, CP, I must tell you, as you were speaking about women, workplace, most of my lady colleagues on WhatsApp were cheering for you, really, that you understood their position so well. I'll take the question to Sindhu. How has a global software product giant like your company handled this situation in India and in your home market? How are you looking at this entire situation? How does it look now from the time when the pandemic struck us and it induced lockdowns?
Yeah, first of all, it's great to be on this very esteemed panel and share my thoughts. Thanks for having me here. And also, CP, it's always great to see you and also hear you. You always bring in the kind of balance between work and your personal experiences. Love hearing that. Yes, so to your question, Suchetna, from an SAP point of view, right? I think we started, you know that we operate out of several locations globally, and we had kind of the precedence of seeing China go into the lockdown before any other country went into a lockdown. This was already back in December, to be precise, where we were all like, okay, that's something that's happening there and may not impact us. However, I have to say, as the kind of the pandemic kind of took on its fierce side, the lockdown in China also gave us a little bit of time to kind of prepare ourselves also to go into lockdown in the other locations that we operate out of, right? And given the fact that SAP, we anyway have a work from home policy even prior to COVID. So this was nothing new in the sense of whether we have the right infrastructure in place or whether we have all the kind of bandwidth availability, things like that. Even in India, where we have 13,000 of our employees present, we have a no desktop policy, right? So it's pretty much 100% of our employees here use laptops. And we always had a work from home policy, but nobody knew that we were looking at it from these extended periods of time, right? And what was also the case, just also reflecting back in that first week of March, I think it was where we kind of used that time before India went into a lockdown to also kind of simulate this where we have all our employees simultaneously getting onto the VPN and connecting to the network and making sure that anybody who had challenges could be given the support as needed. And so this also helped us kind of prepare for it to kind of go into that prolonged working from home mode. However, I think a lot of points were made on productivity and all that, and I just want to reflect that this was also our experience. As we went into the mode of 100% working from home, we also did a lot of productivity checks. In fact, almost every month we do a survey across our product engineering function, which is 30,000 employees across the globe. And we saw that, in fact, productivity significantly had picked up, right? So across, even if you look at things like product backlog management or even customer usage patterns, or even in how teams collaboratively work together. So Tiger was talking about that great equalizer earlier on. We actually saw that. But what we see as a concern, and which is something that we absolutely as an industry also need to look into, is these prolonged work from home modes. How are we going to sustain it? Particularly also from a mental stress and kind of people having heightened levels of stress levels. And this came out also quite clearly in some of the surveys that we did. And so we are also putting in place employee assistance programs. So just to quote this employee assistance program called Sahyog, where we are looking into not just proactively talking about some of the tricky topics like mental health, depression, also things like I think a lot of our employees in India particularly also have caregiving responsibilities, which adds to the challenges that they face, right? So on one hand, everybody is out there to kind of make sure that it works. We get the ultimate customer satisfaction, productivity is going up, but on the other hand, the stress levels clearly is high. And what we also are looking into is putting together policies in place that allow for people to very quickly use programs like Sahyog to come in there and in a very anonymous way also discuss challenges that they face across a whole range of topics. And I think this is super important. And I think this is something we should not underestimate, even if we go back to these hybrid work models. The other thing which I think is important, I mean, on a weekly basis, we hire people, right? And this continues. We went into a fully virtual onboarding mode. So we onboard and also recruit people fully virtually. However, what you see is very quickly the culture aspect. I mean, as a company, we enjoy a culture where there is a flattened hierarchy. I mean, access even to the executive board is pretty straightforward. That is a culture that we enjoy in the organization. So that culture and imbibing that culture into the new hires and the people, that's also something that that we are looking into, because this is something that you don't just sit alone in isolation in your homes and kind of imbibe that culture. That culture has to be experienced and felt, right? So in that sense, yes, technology has played a very significant role in helping us navigate through these times. And I think the opportunity aspect was also discussed in detail. But as a company, and we are also looking into how we can keep the employee morale very high, and how we can also bring back and imbibe that the cultural aspect that we are so proud to enjoy as an organization also into the new hires into the organization.
Thank you very much, Sindhu. In fact, you raised some very, very interesting points. You know, one of the thing about productivity, most of the panel agrees that productivity has increased. I know Dheeraj doesn't agree, and I'm going to come to him next, and maybe he can tell us about it, a little bit about it. But the problem that I see, you know, from our perspective is that while everybody is working from home, there is no switch off time. You know, just like what CP was saying, when do you switch off? There is no fixed time, because what happens in office is when I finish work and I'm driving back home, that drive back home from office to home is the period of transition for me mentally. From my mindset, I'm moving away from office and getting into home mode. By the time I reach home, office is out of my mind. But that space, you know, that transition does not exist when you're working at home, and your work starts at unearthly kind of hours. You know, somebody might call you at 7 a.m., 8 a.m. to ask on something, and then you go until midnight. So that is where the stress and all are coming out. And in the long term, it might hit productivity while it is raising it now, and it's just been 3 or 4 months. We really don't know what it's going to look like in a year, or maybe, you know, 15 months later, if this thing still continues till then, and we hope that it will not. So we'll come to Dheeraj, and Dheeraj, you know, and from an analytics perspective, I'd like to have your view. I mean, apart from the fact that what did you do as a company, but you know, is it easier for companies like yours, where you provide very high-tech analytics, you know, data analytics services, in terms of navigating not just the challenges of COVID, but also the market? Is it slightly easier for you compared to the regular IT services companies? And how did you handle it?
No, absolutely. It is easier. Actually, our business has actually increased in the last 6 months.
That was going to be my next question, but anyway, you've taken it already.
No, I think it's very straightforward because our business is not directly proportional to consumption. Our business is directly proportional to uncertainty. The more the uncertainty, the more the questions. and the more the need to ask questions. So first thing I want to ask you, I mean, and the reason, and I do believe that lots and lots of good things have happened. And I am actually more positive, about my optimism has only gone up. But first thing first, I would want to say is that, in the last 3-4 months, what we have experienced, one thing that has exposed the last 4 months has exposed to us is that we were capable of doing a lot more than we thought we were capable of, right? Which means that we as a community are not asking the question, why not enough? That is clearly exposed at a leadership level. We are not asking the question, why not enough? We are asking the question, how? We are asking the question, what? We are asking the question, why? But we are not asking enough the question, why not? And that's why we are surprised about how much we were able to do. Okay. So that's the first piece of it. The second piece of it is that, this whole aspect of the virus and COVID and the shock that we have felt, if you look at it, right, it has directionally not changed anything. It has just accelerated things, right? Accelerated irrelevance, right? The way I would look at it is that things that were going to become irrelevant, if you're a physics buff, as per second law of thermodynamics, are becoming irrelevant even faster, right? So we have just experienced, time has jumped like a nice kangaroo, 5 years. It has just jumped up. If I am 45 years old right now, I need to think that I am 50 because 5 years has just passed in the last 3 months, right? So this experience of time jumping has happened. Time has become the criteria of the future. Okay, we were in this world of bigger is better. Now we are in this world of faster is better. What does that mean? We were in the world that was denominated by physical things and capital, and therefore economies of scale was the competing metric. Now we are in the world of non-physical things, and time is the denominator. And when you put time in the denominator, it's economies of speed. So as you move from economies of scale to economies of speed, you are not making products and services. Like somebody said, I think Tiger said this before, you're making experiences. And how you think of outcomes that you're delivering with a why not perspective, where the science of technology come together. The science of design and the art of technology must continuously come together to keep asking the question, why not? And if you are in the business of asking why not, you are in the business of discovering ignorance. And unless, so you just don't know what you don't know. And my perspective around, why I challenge the norm of productivity is because I think we are not testing ourselves to the question of why not. And therefore, in this world, which is a little sluggish, we are probably not being challenged enough. And therefore, as this world evolves to present the full challenges, and I'm hoping, and I'm super optimistic about this, we are going to create lots of interesting ways, of asking this question, why not? If there's one thing which I would talk to my business friends right now, I ask us, so clearly we were not asking why not enough, right? And as an entrepreneur, as a founder, I am in the business of taking risks. And therefore, I encourage, all of us as a community to say, ask the question, why not more? Ask the question, work from wherever more. Ask the question, are you thinking about, your differentiator as a business is going to be your responsiveness, right? How responsive you are to a world that's going to constantly keep changing because the entropy has constantly increased. Now, I was listening to CP very carefully, and when he said that this is the biggest crisis that we have faced, well, I can tell you one thing. It's kind of like Bollywood. The next movie will be a bigger hit, right? So because crisis builds on itself, and there is a nature of complexity where it has to build. It is cumulative product. It is not so we will be facing remnants of this crisis for a long time, and whatever next crisis is going to build on it. So when you see what's happening in America, as this COVID crisis was building up, you saw the racial crisis building up. As this COVID crisis, so what you're facing is not a racial crisis anymore. It's a COVID crisis plus a racial crisis. And in India, you're facing a COVID crisis plus a China crisis. And if you face, then it will be a COVID crisis plus a cyber crisis. So that's, and by the way, that's entropy. That's just how complexity works. So what that means is, you need to, we all of us together have to kind of, because we are now front and center in the business of dealing with uncertainty and asking why not, you have to be a producer of optionality. You constantly have to be a producer of optionality. Are you a consumer of optionality or are you a producer of optionality? People who are producers of optionality, producers of innovation, should constantly feel dissatisfied with how much we are asking this question, why not? And therefore challenge ourselves, saying, this is not enough. And we have to, get to that place, which will allow us to truly be innovative for our customers, which actually the surface area of our customers, like our surface area of our cyber has increased, surface areas of our what we can touch as customers and how you can touch as our customers with what you can touch our customers has also increased. So, which means that, the question, our surface area for why not has increased. So that's how I would put it.
Thank you very much, Dheeraj. In fact, your comments are as sharp as your software. When you talk of data analytics and very, very sharp insights. Thank you very much. I'll come to Monish, but before that, Monish, I'd like to take you to and the other panelists also to take a look at the second poll that we have lined up. Nidhi, can you roll it out, please? Okay, so we have about 500 people here, and the question is, who will benefit more from permanent work from home? Company will benefit more, employees will benefit more, nobody will benefit? Not sure.
I think there's one answer missing, right? Both will benefit.
We wanted to keep that. It's too neutral. Okay, we'll have to give it a little time because there are about 200 people to go to vote. We're waiting for them to come in. A lot of people are not sure.
But more than 130 people feel that the company will benefit.
Company will benefit more than the employees.
Yes.
Interesting insight. It's a trick question. So, okay, have we got everybody? No, people are still voting. I can see the numbers climbing. About 350 have voted already. Right. Everybody hurry up.
Fortunately, companies cannot vote, right?
No.
It's only
and the panelists cannot vote. It's all your employees' voice. It comes through in the best companies to work for kind of service.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we've got more or less the whole drift of it. Nidhi, we can end the poll. It's about 368. I don't think anybody else is too very keen. So it's a interesting split, but obviously company will benefit more. People tend to believe a little more. Monish, maybe, along with your insights into, your part of the analytics piece and how it works for your company in this kind of pandemic situation, you could also tell us a little bit about this permanent work from home thought and the fact that people actually believe that the company will benefit more than the employee.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you again for having me on the panel. So, for me, having heard, the thoughts of everybody on the panel, the rest of them, I think it's a very interesting thing. For us, we are substantially smaller. We are an enterprise SaaS company, so we don't have thousands of people. We have 1,200. So our problem was, of course, much more ringed. But we still had to deal with it. And we moved from kind of being, a mix of work from home and work from office to completely 100% work from home in about 48 hours. So our transition was very quick. In software development, especially enterprise software development, people are used to working from home. People are used to doing implementations remotely and so on. So that transition was fairly straightforward. It was interesting though to kind of give people a structure. We came up with this rings of responsibility saying, hey, how do you deal with this situation? How do you deal with it at home? How do you deal with it in your family? How do you deal with it with the business and the customers? And I think that helped our employees quite a bit. Icertians were really, they got some structure out of this to work with. So one good thing I think we did overall was to make sure that we went in the crisis with the structure. I think the second thing was we were very influenced by this whole idea of Taleb. This is a Black Swan event, and resilience is kind of, people are kind of thinking about how to be resilient, how to cope up with it. We went and said, why not be anti-fragile? Essentially make sure that we are actually leveraging this kind of a situation to think better. And I think that's where I resonate with Dheeraj. He said, why not? You know, the question that you have to ask. And we said, you know, we initially, and, you know, whenever something like this hits, I remember the 9/11 days. I was in Boston when the attacks on the World Trade Center happened. And that was a crisis which was fairly localized, though it kind of spread to the world, but it was fairly localized. But at that time also the first reaction was shock. The second reaction was concern. The third reaction was, okay, now how do I handle this? The fourth reaction was, okay, now how do I leverage this, right? So having gone through, and all of us have gone through these crises, I think coming to the mindset of, hey, how do I handle this better? How do I leverage this? Actually is extremely important. I think that's the lesson, you know, we learned from this crisis in terms of how to handle an enterprise SaaS company that way. The second thing I wanted to say was, you know, if I look at what has happened in the last few months, I think Tiger said this right at the beginning when we were having this discussion before we started. You have to kind of make sure that the other party is also willing to come with the change. So as Dheeraj described, the entropy is increasing, but the entropy with Maxwell's law is essentially going to be increasing because everyone is moving away. But if you are the only one moving away, you have a problem, right? But this crisis actually made everyone come together in a way saying that, hey, work from home, remote execution, making sure that you're working from home. From your customer's perspective, even banking and insurance sectors who were traditionally saying, hey, you know, you leave your cell phones out the door before you come into my offshore development center. All that has completely changed, right? And we think about cybersecurity. I think it's also boils down to how you become more anti-fragile. If you can manage a desktop from home with the same level of security that you are managing from the office, which I bet every one of us is going to do because there's no choice, we are automatically becoming more anti-fragile, right? Because we are now automatically, we're forcing ourselves to make sure that our levels are going up. The same thing that CP gave an example of, you know, you go home and say, you know, why don't you make curry for me? Now the conversation I'm sure will change to, hey, come on, I'll teach you how to make the curry, you can do it yourself, right? Now that big transition is also a form of anti-fragility. I think it's also, you know, if I have to draw another metaphor, which I've always resonated with in the last 4 months, if you've watched Jurassic Park, there's a line there which is very potent. Life finds a way. And in these kind of massive changes that happen across the world, life will find a way. We will find how to deal with our mental problems. We'll find how to deal with working from home, being less social than we were before, finding out ways of becoming more social in some ways, because the world is becoming, you know, coming closer together. I think just like the social revolution, this distancing revolution will also play out very well. And there is that opportunity there. And I think that is why I also kind of very, very strongly resonate with the fact that companies should not look at this as an opportunity to save money. Companies should look at this as an opportunity to create opportunity. I think that's so critical because that's how your mind share changes. That is how people, individuals as well, this applies not just to companies, but individuals. You know, you are in a situation, yesterday actually, it was very close to, you know, my heart story. We onboarded 55 fresh graduates from, you know, our campus hiring, and all 55 people joined students joined yesterday. And I was talking to them. I said, hey, how do you feel? And they said, when we heard this, we were very concerned. We didn't know if we would have a job. And I said, what did you do? How did you think about this? And I got like 20 different answers. And one student actually said, Monish, when I heard about this, I started thinking about what else I could learn. What courses could I take? Could I go do machine learning? Could I do artificial intelligence? And I said, exactly. That's how you think about an opportunity that is created by adversity. And I think that is where, we've also been thankful from a perspective of, how we've reacted and how our people have reacted to say that, hey, this is how you channel your energies into becoming more positive. Also, business has been great for us, digital transformation, as we heard from Sumit as well, digital transformation is big. So contract management has actually been the center of most companies' digital transformation initiatives anyway. So business has been great, but even then you have to make sure that people don't get that angst, that worry in terms of how to deal with business.
Right. I think Sudha has something to say. Sudha, you want to have just come in a bit?
Yes. I just wanted to mention something. See, we spoke, yes, there is a pre-COVID era, there's a during COVID era, and there's a post-COVID era. So human beings function in a specific way, in a particular way when threatened, when forced to. But when there is a choice, we might function in a slightly different manner. So while during COVID, this is the manner in which we are performing, maybe it has brought out the best in us. Maybe it has made us far more resilient. Maybe it has, taught us a lot more humility and several other lessons. But post-COVID, when we are going to have a choice, how much of this is really going to carry on? And Dheeraj, you kept mentioning why not. Tell me how much of why not will happen again during post-COVID? There will be a hangover. It will certainly be, the decay will not be so soon. There will be a lag effect and the baseline will go up slightly post. It's not going to come back to where it was before. But I would like, the IT industry really to dwell on post-COVID is not going to be what during COVID is going to be.
No, absolutely. I think it's a very, very relevant point. I think I thought about this and because, the elasticity of the current situation will be tested post-COVID and we will go back like a rubber band, right? But I think the way you should think about this is that if you look at the Pareto, which is 80-20, right? The nature of the last 10 years has been that 80-20 has become 85-15, has become 90-10, has become 95-5, has become 98-2. 2% of the world owns most of the wealth, yes. Right? The reason for that is because they ask the question, why not more often? And they ask the question, they do the risk taking more often. My perspective to you would be that, this polarization, right? What's going to happen? I believe this is my worldview. I could be wrong about this, but at least I have to put it out there, and I'll go out on a limb and put it out there, is that what will happen is that many people will actually go back. And the few people who don't go back will build the future, right? So think about this. We jump to 2025 today. Many people will come back to 2021, right? Few people will start from 2025. And the difference between the guys who are in the future and the guys who are now will be larger. And that polarization will mean that the innovators will benefit a lot more. The benefit from why not has just increased because of this.
But I think there's another aspect to this, right? The other aspect to this is if you think about how these crises generally evolve, obviously, this is probably one of the biggest. But if you look at 9/11, if you look at the mortgage crisis, if you look at all of these crises that have happened, even the plague, 150 years ago, what happens is people react. There are 4 or 5 fundamental changes that happen in society, and then the world kind of reorients itself like a magnetic field around those 4 or 5 fundamental changes, right? And I think that's exactly what's going to happen here. Again, theory, of course. unless it happens, you never are sure whether it happens or not. But I think that's what, 4 or 5 changes. One of them is work from home, work them as kind of be more careful, be more sensitive about distancing, the business models, travel. I think these are 4 or 5 things that will fundamentally change how we work and live.
I think if I can
just... From there, I will... Yes, please, Debashish, go ahead.
Just to extend on that, I mean, if I can just add, while talking to one of my clients, I heard something very interesting. And he said that this is not the end. I mean, there could be another pandemic which can happen. So I think people have already started thinking that post-COVID, don't assume that there cannot be another COVID-like scenario. And to the point that Monish made, I have a view, and this is something which I'm observing right now. Clients have been talking about digital transformation. And when you talk about digital transformation, I think it is transformation led by digital, but we call it digital transformation. And we have been talking about cost takeout. We have been talking about reimagining our own business models, or like customers' business models. I think one thing which I'm seeing right now, and I don't know whether all of the other panelists are seeing that in their business, is that clients are now seriously thinking about reimagining their business models. I mean, simply take the example of airline. They have to think of more contactless, for example. And if you think of reimagining your business models, it cannot happen unless you really leverage IT. So I think from an IT industry standpoint, I feel that IT has become more central post-COVID, or IT will become more central to the transformation when it happens, when you're talking about reimagining your business models than ever before. So I think there's a great opportunity. And I'll add one last point, which is again something which I'm seeing that clients are willing to have conversations these days. We have been talking about business outcomes. We have been talking about, can we be measured on business outcomes rather than getting into pure T&M and all those things. I can see that some conversations have started now. It's easier said than done, but I think some conversations have started where clients are willing to, because the only way you can avoid these discussions about on-site, offshore and all these things is truly going towards a business outcome. I think if we can drive that kind of conversation, that will be a tremendous value add for the industry as well.
Right.
I think an interesting quote one of my clients told me is that crises are like washing machines, and they will toss you and turn you, but you will end up looking brighter at the end of it. So hopefully that's the case from an innovation perspective.
A little crumpled.
Yes, that could be fleshed out to have a nice line, a nice catch line. So we're getting questions from the over 400 audience that we have. Questions from Chetan Mehra, from this is Sudhir Singh, all questions pointing towards new growth avenues. See, from our perspective, what we see are 3 primary challenges to growth. First, the pandemic has brought home the need to diversify risk. And here I speak about the over-dependence on the US and Europe as dominant markets, and select verticals for major chunk of top lines. Secondly, digital tech services now comprises 18 to 20% of Indian IT's top line and growing at 40% plus. This opens up a new growth frontier, along with associated challenges, of course. So thirdly, analysts say that the new order flow may remain slow in 2020. So let us examine all the 3 aspects and look at growth through spreading of risk, growth through digital, and growth through order pipeline. And I'll take this question to Tiger first. You've come a long way from the Jekis days. Genpact's 2018 annual report says that you have 700 clients, yet the top 20 contribute to more than 40% of revenue. Now, BPO is 83% of revenues, BFSI industry is 37% of your revenues, and India is 55% plus of work delivered. So are you rethinking this mix for future growth?
No, we love our current strategic direction that we took in 2013. And the reason I say that is because if you take a look at 3 dimensions, let's start with industry verticals that we serve. For a variety of reasons that has nothing to do with the pandemic, because we weren't crystal ball gazers that said, hey, pandemic is coming. We chose a set of industry verticals that, if you think about our current business today, and we obviously did a very quick evaluation, they've stood the test of a pandemic attack better than some of the more harder hit industries. For a variety of different reasons, We haven't got a big business in travel, airlines, cruise lines, upstream energy, nothing. We're very binary in our choices, by the way. When we make a choice, we go double, triple down on it, and then we ignore the other things completely. We are, as a company, we are very good. Where 100,000 people say, we'll do this. Strategy is about a 10-page document. 9.5 pages is a definition of what we will not do. The last half page is what we will do. And then we all stick to it, 100,000 people. And then every year we revisit the topic of, should we do something else? But that's a revisit rather than a transactional, hey, should we do this today? Should we do this tomorrow? So industry verticals, we're thrilled about our choices. The second is the types of services that we are in, where we engage with our clients to drive value to them. We've always considered our services to be incredibly non-discretionary. I mean, our clients can't wake up in the morning and say, I don't want this today or tomorrow. It's still true. The best test of that is what happens through the pandemic. We believe that we are going to be highly resilient through the pandemic, through a combination of the choice of industry verticals and the choice of services. And a lot of those services, irrespective of what the company is going through, our client is going through, in some respects, they need us even more. And the third is the geographic distribution of the work and where we perform that work, where we have the teams, etc. 10 years back, the concentration of that in India was dramatically higher than it is today. Today, we deliver services from 23 countries. We have a distribution of work that spans from China to Philippines to Malaysia to India to 6 different countries in Europe to 4 countries in Latin America to US, Canada, Australia, UK. I mean, these are places where our teams are located and sit in operating centers and deliver services, create solutions, work with our clients. And the pandemic has demonstrated the resiliency of having that distributed network. By the way, they function as one team, which is, if I'm serving client X, I may be having a team that is distributed in 9 locations. There's one leader who's responsible for those 9 locations and the 1,000 people who sit in those 9 locations as one virtual team. Therefore, for us, the virtualization of our services was not, oh my God, we got to do something new. It's something similar to what Manish said. We've been a virtual team forever. In 2011, when I took over as the CEO, I said, there is no headquarters that this company has, which, by the way, we don't have a headquarters. We've said that publicly many times. My leadership team of 20 people are not in one city. They are in 11 different cities. We get together often virtually. So that's nothing new. There's no such thing as let's get together in this office because we never did that. So for us, life hasn't changed actually. Now, has life changed in an operating center? Yes, it has. Now they work from home. But the ethos of the company hasn't changed. So, by the way, I'm going to make a counterpoint to risk diversification. The danger in risk diversification being used as a reason to do many things takes away from what I think is core to strategy, which is focus. Pick 2 things and become the expert and become number 1 or number 2 in that. Now pick the 2 right things. So diversification is not about a peanut butter, let's do everything approach. Diversification is about, can you strategically make the right choices? And those choices may be only do 2 things, don't do 98 things.
Thank you. In fact, that is a very strong. So it seems that your growth model remains intact despite the pandemic, and you will continue the same strategy as before. Is that the idea?
So our strategy, I think someone else said it right. Our strategy hasn't changed. I think Dheeraj said this. Our strategy hasn't changed because our client strategy hasn't changed. Right. It's accelerated what already was happening.
Right.
At the leadership level, some of them wish they could do it faster, but they did not. I think it's a great question to say, why the hell did they not? Because they were unwilling to break glass. Well, the world broke glass for them. So now they're all thrilled. So now they are saying, instead of taking 3 years to do this, can we do it in 4 weeks? So by the way, the time element of this is not, can we do it 30% faster, 40% faster, 75% faster? No. It's instead of doing it in years, can we do it in weeks?
Order of magnitude.
There is no comparison. So there's an order of magnitude here, and you start with a clean sheet of paper approach.
Right.
So for us, it is an acceleration of all the strategic pivots that we had started pushing on: cloud, real-time analytics, going deeper into our clients' business and understanding our clients' business, having made the choices that we made. So all of those are just an experience. We just did a big acquisition in November of a company that's focused only on experience. All of those are just accelerated. And therefore, is our growth intact? So I want to refer a little bit to, I think, the way, Sujitna, you launched the conversation, which is the industry is going to be challenged from a decade-long lower growth than the whole decade.
Yeah.
And
that's what the analysts have been predicting.
That's what the analysts are saying.
The way you said it felt like, oh wow, the industry is going to deal with a lowest growth in a decade. So my position on that is, what is that growth relative to the growth of the world?
Mm-hmm.
And I think we are going to be very fortunate that the growth of this industry is going to be much better than the growth of the world. Mm-hmm. Number one. Number two, what is the growth of that industry in India versus the growth of the other industries in India? And it's going to be way better than that. So if the world is going to shrink, then why should we be sitting in an ivory tower and saying, no, we cannot be lower growth? Of course we'll be lower growth. But isn't it fabulous to be 5% growth when everyone else is minus 10%? What a great position to be in. Isn't it great to be flat, zero growth, when there are companies and industries are going to be minus 15% growth? What a fabulous position to be in. So I love the fact that we are in this industry. I love the fact that we can say we're going to be flat growth. Hooray. That's our view.
Fantastic. That's really sharp, and you sound just like Tiger, right? great insight and a lot of conviction. I'll come to Sindhu because, there's been a lot of, we also, Suchetna also made the point about digital transformation of technology companies themselves, right? And the reskilling and the upskilling, need that has been there already. It's not something new. It's been there for the last couple of years when the digital wave, digitalization wave, sort of picked up steam. But for that, I will quickly ask Nidhi again to run our last poll of the day. Nidhi, can you just run that? And then we can have some context for the question to Sindhu. Okay, this is not company specific. Is it, are you happy with the IT industry's reskilling drive? I think this is the first question where the top answer is not getting the max votes. Okay. Only a few companies are doing it well, and I'm sure the companies here on the panel are part of that because we get only the best here, right? So, and actually quite a few people believe, about 40 of them so far, that nobody is doing anything. That is a little difficult to believe, even though we put the option there ourselves. But okay, we have a fairly good vote. 73% people have voted. Only a few companies are doing it well. Seems to be the dominant theme, Sindhu, in this, in terms of the reskilling and the upskilling in terms of digital technologies. And I believe that is not far off from the ground situation. And it is probably not far off from the ground situation in the West also, right? Where to be a digital company is something that, I read a McKinsey report a few weeks ago, which said that only 4% of American companies can be called digital company in terms of the full optimal usage of digital technologies. Mm-hmm. So, the question to you is, while the IT industry serves so many different verticals like retail, travel, hospitality, BFSI and all that, what are they doing about themselves? Do you see the companies in India as somebody who, engages with the IT companies here in India very deeply? Do you see them looking inwards towards their own digital transformation efforts? And like, the poll said, only a few companies are doing it well. What do you have to say to that?
Yeah, I think for any organization to kind of sustain innovation, and I think everybody kind of alluded to that earlier on as well, Alokesh, that we have to have a culture of continuous learning and talent development, right? I think to your earlier question, or Suchetna's earlier question, I talked about how as an organization we transformed our entire hiring and recruitment into leveraging technology to turn that completely into a virtual mode, right? And again, this is not just about conducting an interview virtually and things like that, but we're talking about hardcore usage of technology into some of the core products that we use in that process. And these are some of the products that we take to market in the space of, say, total workforce management, where we're looking into how our organizations managing their entire workforce, be it workforce within their organization or even beyond, right? So solutions like SuccessFactors, I'm sure some of you have heard about it, which is a leading cloud solution in that space when we talk about talent management. Here we're talking about how are we leveraging technology like infusing AI, ML, to help in that whole recruitment process, to make sure that we avoid any biases that can be part of that process, to ensure that we can go through an automated onboarding and also giving that infused intelligence, infused analytics as part of that process to give a recruitment or a talent attraction lead that visibility on where they are with budgets, where they are with kind of the skills that they're looking for, and how quickly that they need to kind of fill those gaps, right? So we're talking about deeply infusing technology into the core of our processes that we use internally, but also helping our customers also leverage those kind of technologies. And coming to my point on the importance of continuous learning and also talent development, right? I think this becomes super important, especially if you're an organization who's focused on innovation and who's also looking into bringing together a diverse set of workforce across all ranges of experience into your organization. That becomes super important, right? And having those avenues that allow for that continuous learning to not just keep employees motivated, but also to build your talent pipeline to address that very complex business needs of your industry becomes super relevant, right? And again, you can just look at it, the uptake of the various virtual learning platforms that we see across, right? That's a testimony to that fact as well. And at SAP, if I just reflect on how we do it, I mean, continuous learning is part of our innovation DNA. And this is also why we also invest into things like OpenSAP, which is an open platform where several millions of users can come and learn and so on. But we also focus on kind of building those right set of skills, like, I mean, when you have those conversations with customers, sometimes we are looking into conversations where the entire customer experience need to be kind of reimagined, right? And that's not just about, hey, here is my master of this technology, but to be able to envision where the customer is in that journey and kind of co-innovate, co-work, co-design, get into a call and be able to get to that target outcome that we talked about. And this is also why programs like DevX, where we bring our customers, bring our developers together to look at those kind of development journeys. Also things like design thinking methodologies, which is kind of a part of our core DNA, becomes a very, very key, right? Just recently, if I just reflect, our entire innovation program that we do with entrepreneurs within the company. So we have this program called Invent, and this is for our India location. And we went completely virtual because earlier Invent was a kind of an on-site event where we went through a process of identifying people who had those ideas, bring them together, took them through a startup curriculum, and exposed them to various things like business models and all that. Now we opened it up to the 13,000 employees across India because we have the possibility to do that. And actually, as we speak, this is happening where that whole startup learning and unlearning, if you want to call it, is also happening, right?
Yes, yes. Yeah. So
yeah, go ahead.
Yes, Sumit, before you make your point, I'll just quickly go to Debashish for one thing. This is where I stubbornly go back to the issue that I raised, which is about new frontiers of growth. So for Mindtree, what is your growth strategy in a post-COVID world? You have 92% of your revenues from Americas and Europe, and you've pointed to an increasing demand in communication, media, and tech. So what is your growth strategy, Debashish?
No, I think, I'm not so fortunate as Tiger. And took up this role in last year, and I have 17% of my revenues come from travel, transportation, hospitality. So again, you can't be, you never predicted something like COVID. So obviously there are things that we are thinking through. I unfortunately cannot say much, and my results are coming out next week, and we are in a silent period. But I can only say that I think the view that we have is that digital has become completely mainstream. So rather than saying digital transformation, we kind of use a different tagline. We say that we are helping our clients to transform leveraging digital, and in that process, we are also reorganizing ourselves to a certain extent, and we are focusing significantly on customer success, customer experience. We are focusing significantly on cloud and data, and also the enterprise IT, because our view is that as you are going after your customer base and you're talking about digital is just not the front end, it's basically end to end. You have to kind of go from the customer experience all the way to the enterprise IT, modernize the IT, etc. So that's the strategy that we have adopted, which is something which we are going to share more as we go along. But overall, if your question is that are we going to open up new industries and all, nothing like that on the cards. But we are kind of hit fairly badly because of the choice of industries that we have been in. But honestly speaking, that's the way life is. But we are also very bullish in terms of some of the the CMT, the comms media technology. They have been kind of doing fairly well within this through this downturn. So we are expecting that some of those things will turn over a period of time.
Yeah. So all eyes on 14 July. That's when your Q1 results come out. I'll go back to Sumit. Sumit, you wanted to make a point.
Yeah, thank you, Sujatna. I wanted to make a small point on reskilling.
Yes.
And I actually completely agree with the audience poll, right? That, the reskilling or continuous skilling, as Sindhu put it, is a perfect amalgamation of people, process, and technology. One thing cannot solve it. And very often, I find, not probably with the companies that are sitting on the panel, but the leadership team of IT services and ITES service companies always feel that we are doing a great job on reskilling. But the reality is that they aren't. And you get the kind of response that you got from the audience because, if you look at the real metrics or outcome metrics of reskilling, we in the industry have had a very bad record of that. So, from my perspective, and I think we do a good job of cadre-based training, but we do a very, very lousy job of demand-based skilling. And we feel good about, having, opened up digital training media to our employees. But I think it's time for the industry to start measuring outcomes, from the reskilling exercise rather than inputs, that we all talk about and love to talk about.
Sumit, can I add something? Because it's a very important point you're bringing up. I'd like all of us to start thinking about it as not as reskilling, but unskilling. And I'll tell you why I feel that way. Because this skills-based perspective is actually based on, based on saying that this is the boundaries around which my problem exists, and I'm going to do it within this boundary. So I'm a programmer, or I'm a business analyst, I'm a applied mathematician or a statistician. I think the boundaries of the problem space is constantly expanding, and therefore, thinking about it not from a skill-based perspective, tool set, skill set based perspective, but actually abstracting yourself to becoming all-rounders, is becoming very, very important right now. And the reason I say that is if you just take the perspective that the world has become going from, we're in India, so we should talk about cricket. So if it's going from test cricket to one-day cricket and 2020, you will see that the number of all-rounders keep increasing as you go from test cricket to one-day cricket to 2020. You'll also see that the invention of the wicketkeeper batsman happening. You will also see that that there will be more time spent on nets and relative to the time in the game, because you're practicing in, your fitness becomes that much more important. And things that were considered blasphemy in test cricket are completely okay. A reverse hit, Dill Scoop, all of those is completely okay. So I think the perspective of, that comes from that why not perspective. So what I would say is, if we can get more and more people to learn within the canvas of their work, rather than saying that I'll give separate time for you to unskill yourself. But, in the canvas of the work, you have to unskill yourself and move into this world of saying that I can learn anything. There is no boundaries for my learning. That becomes very, very important, Sumit.
Right. So Dheeraj, basically it's a very good idea. Instead of having courses and all, learn on the job, right? Give the guy a job where he has to learn a new skill. Is that what you're saying?
वो काम पे ही सीखते हैं बॉस, बाकी सब तो झूठ है.
That's the best way to learn.
मेरे को झूठ पे झूठ बोलते जा रहे हैं. काम पे ही सब सीख रहे हैं.
I think this is exactly where methodologies like design thinking come to play, right? Where you don't just come with, hey, I'm aware of this technology, but you come together, you understand what's the outcome you want to get to, and what kind of skills do you need to get there, right?
Yeah. I see this perspective of entity-based thinking is being challenged by interaction-based thinking. Okay, so I actually joke about it. For Tambrams, they will find it interesting because this, the old world was more Iyengar, industry. Now it's become Iyer, more horizontal, right? So, but
you have quite a few people here who can relate to that.
Oh yeah. So at least I know 3-4 people. So I thought we'll.
Subha wants to say something. Great.
I'm still a founder-driven private company. I can be a little bit more blasphemous.
Of course you can. Monish, you're saying things, but you're on mute, I think. But we can't hear you. You're not on mute, but we can't hear you still.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah,
we can.
No, I was saying, I think I agree with you completely, 101%. But I think the world is rarely black and white, right? So focus, as Peter said very right, is so critical. If you kind of get focused, skilling is also like that, right? At the end of the day, you have some people at the bottom of the pyramid that you really have to make sure are very, very skilled in a
No, I completely agree with Tiger on focus. Okay, I believe that it's a big deal. It's a big deal. Focus is a huge deal. But I think the focus right now is not on industry, but on industriousness, right? So, that's where it becomes interesting because CPG wants to talk to retail and pharma wants to talk to pharmacy and pharmacy and pharma want to talk to payers. I think वो convergence हो रहा है, right? हम उसको रोक नहीं सकते. We can't stop it, right?
Yeah.
And that's because that's the nature of information. Information is information. So it is always a work in progress. It is information. And therefore it constantly connects. And therefore you have no choice but to accept that transience.
Dheeraj, you have just jumped to the top of the list of people I want to meet after the crisis gets over. I want to sit with you and talk about science.
Okay.
And things like that.
Only physics.
Absolutely. But, we have completely run out of time. But I have one last question for Tiger, and which is a very small question. And, I know he will answer it, in a tigerish way. And which is that you just said that you had acquired a company, for customer experience, right? A company that specializes in experience. So do you think that the pandemic has opened up greater opportunities for more such value buyouts at a lower price?
Any dislocation in any market opens up opportunities for all kinds of things. It opens up opportunities where that dislocation creates opportunities where you think a particular capability, a particular skill is going to be more valuable faster than before. So that's one thing that dislocation does. And the other thing that dislocation does, and the pandemic is going to do it, is in every industry, in every arena, the distinction between winners and losers is going to get more dispersed. Rather than when the rising tide is there, everyone lifts up.
Everyone rises, yeah.
When the tide falls, some fall faster than the others. So that creates an opportunity for both, I need something, and there are going to be some people who are going to be more available, not just because they are more distressed and value, etc., but also because they think they're actually combining with someone, combining forces is going to create more value for themselves and for the employees and for the customer. So the simple answer is, I think there are lots of opportunities to add through acquisitions. However, look, the world is uncertain. Valuation is uncertain. Equity markets are uncertain. I think people can put whatever value they want. They won't be able to defend anything. So it's a question of at what stage do you think there is reasonable visibility that the world has that you can pin on and therefore say this is the right time to acquire. But I think it's clearly an opportunity that lots of companies and lots of industries are going to look at, and our industry is also going to look at, and we will also continue to look at.
Right.
Absolutely. We've completely run out of time.
An acquisition, doing an acquisition without meeting people who are going to become part of the company is an interesting challenge. I don't think it's impossible, because after all, we've signed pretty significant deals with brand new enterprises in the last 100 days. And neither the client, I mean, obviously none of our people have met none of our clients' people other than virtually. So instead of doing 10 meetings face-to-face that typically would have happened over a 6-month period, we've done 150 meetings virtually. And I would argue 150 meetings virtually is more than equal to 10 face-to-face meetings. I still argue that. So I think we know those people. They know
it's about
journalists, we always swear by the face-to-face meetings, though.
Zoom box.
It's about thinking out of the Zoom box.
And the airline companies are lamenting that all these meetings happened virtually and did not happen face-to-face. Well, we've completely run out of time. Thank you to each one of you for joining us on this very esteemed panel. It was an absolute privilege for me to have been the moderator here. We after a very long time, we've been doing webinars, and after a very long time, we've looked beyond the lamentations that COVID has brought about, and we looked at the opportunities. And as Debashish pointed out, we looked at the responsibilities that this pandemic has entailed us with. As Tiger pointed out, that we should not be looking at the work from home from a money-saving perspective, but a perspective of investment that can help future innovation. As Sindhu very rightly put it, this is the right time to ensure that the culture is also virtually transmitted to new people who are onboarded, and also how Sindhu pointed out that skilling is the need, and we should not lose sight of it. Thank you very much for all your insights. Dheeraj, I have read in a book that you are a believer in Shiva. So therefore, I think you believe that the destruction is over, and that will lead to more, perhaps newer vistas and more opportunities. Thank you.
No, I think the way I think about it is Shiva is nothing but entropy. And he's always dancing with Shakti, who is energy. Shiva is formless, therefore entropy. And Shakti is the form. So that perspective of, old science, which we mistakenly call Hinduism, is lost. The first law of thermodynamics is that Shakti is always conserved. And the second law of thermodynamics is that Shiva is always expanding. So with that perspective, you can keep a perspective. What I am a believer in is not Shiva, it's actually entropy.
Great. Thanks for that line to sum up this great discussion. Sumit, you actually set the tone for today's panel discussion with your insights with that presentation. Thank you, Munish, for your perspective. So again, thanks all of you. Alokesh, over to you.
Thank you all very much. I can't say anything beyond what Suchetna has already said. Is that the great insights. It was a really great panel to have. Thank you to our partner, SAP, for giving us this opportunity to do these panel CEO dialogues. And we love doing them, and we hope to see you again soon in another dialogue that we'll probably line up. Thank you all very much. Tiger, special thanks for getting up at, God knows, you woke up at probably 5 a.m. to join this call.
It's my normal time.
Okay, your normal time. Then
remember, I'm a Tamram.
You forgot he's a Tamram, yes.
And you are related to
we gave you the opportunity, and we gave Dheeraj the opportunity of connecting with his relatives.
Yeah. So.
Okay, all right. Thank you all very, very much. Thanks to all the people who attended today.
Thanks all of you.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.